They kind of ate with the writing on this one a little bit. I'm so sorry. I know you don't want to hear that. I know you want to hear this movie sucked. It was good. It was kind of good. Aside from Jamie Lynn's acting. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Lenny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. I took a little bit of a break from YouTube during July, but I missed y'all. It's been a minute. A lot has gone on. So I'm happy to be back today covering Zoey 102, a reboot / movie based on the Zoey 101 TV show on Nickelodeon from the 2000s. I wasn't sure if I should cover this movie because of a lot of reasons, but then I started seeing my YouTube feed, a lot of reviews come out about Zoey 102. A lot of people were calling it the most terrible movie ever, worst thing ever made. But then I watched it and it wasn't like as bad as everyone was saying. So I wanted to put in my 2 cents, discuss the positives and negatives with y'all, see what y'all think about it. Because I feel like in the internet, of course, extreme opinions always sell the best, especially in the negative direction. So saying an unpopular movie is like the worst thing ever made is a way more interesting title than saying Zoey 102 was just fine, I guess. Before I get into talking about Zoey 102, I do want to give a disclaimer about the strikes going on in Hollywood right now. Right now, the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA unions are striking. I couldn't find that much guidance about what content creators like me are supposed to do regarding this strike. The closest thing I found is this disclaimer statement from like an association of critics, like movie reviewers that actually get published in like magazines and stuff. And it's a statement to put at the beginning of each piece where you're reviewing a movie or a TV show in order to show your solidarity and bring awareness to the strikes. Influencers doing like paid content to promote a movie and TV show is not okay with the unions, but I'm a much smaller content creator. I don't get paid by any studios. I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm like offended. Why haven't any studios reached out to me to review their movies? Rude. And the only small amount of money I make on here is when I'm covering reality TV, which is not protected by unions, but it probably should be. And I think providing this disclaimer statement is the only action that applies to my situation as a independent content creator covering Hollywood productions. This video was recorded and created during the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Without the labor of the writers and actors currently on strike, the movie being covered here would not exist. And that's very true. I support the strikes 100%. I don't care how many great shows that I love it delays. It doesn't matter. There are some huge issues that need to be figured out fairly for writers and actors and all of Hollywood, honestly. I 100% blame the studios for being greedy monsters that don't want to pay the people that like make the great content we love. That being said, let's talk about Zoey 102. As I said, Zoey 102 was not as bad as I expected. I expected a whole dumpster fire because I remember when the first look photos were released. For some reason, it looked like the movie had been filmed in like a week, that it was going to be super cheap, super like cringy and bad. And obviously, Jamie Lynn Spears has a really bad reputation in the eyes of fans right now. So I just was not expecting any kind of decent or easy and fun to watch piece at the end of it. However, once I watched it, I noticed it wasn't so terrible. I do say that it's only worth watching if you were a fan of the original Zoey 101. I was one of those people. I was a kid obsessed with Zoey 101. It's basically about like middle school and high school age kids, but they're in a boarding school that's basically just college or university. Plus they're like by the beach and it's this gorgeous scenery and there's like no parents. It's just fun socializing all the time. There doesn't seem to be any classes or homework. So obviously as a 12-year-old, that show was like the coolest thing ever to me. But if you didn't see the original, I don't think it's worth watching. Zoey 102 follows a lot of very typical, overplayed rom-com-y tropes. It's just like a string of tropes. Very predictable, and some of the cool things about it are the references to the original show. So if you didn't watch the original, you won't get many of like the positives out of it. I also do understand like not watching Zoey 102 in protest of Dan Schneider, who created Zoey 101, or Jamie Lynn Spears, who have had their shares of controversy in the public eye. And that's part of why I wanted to make this video too, just for people that were curious and didn't feel like watching a whole movie, or were purposely not trying to watch it to not support the people involved that have caused harm. Dan Schneider has like a whole laundry list of allegations and creepy, weird stuff going on. It's unfortunate that he is so like integral to my childhood and a lot of people that were avid watchers of Nickelodeon's childhood, because he made like Drake and Josh, Zoey 101, iCarly, Victorious, a lot of these shows that produced big stars and were long-running hits on Nickelodeon. It's unfortunate he's so linked to all that, but like he seems like a really shady guy. I really recommend reading or listening to Jeanette McCurdy's book called I'm Glad My Mom Died, where she talks about some of these things. You could also find excerpts specifically about Dan Schneider, that he would like pit the actors against each other a lot, encourage underage drinking, make really twisted situations for the characters, a big obsession with feet, and there's definitely some weird thing going on with that. I don't think Dan Schneider was super involved in Zoey 102 from what I was looking at. He didn't like write it, direct it, produce it really, but he might still get something out of it since it's using IP that he created with Zoey 101. I'm not really sure, but I understand not wanting to support that. And also Jamie Lynn Spears has been controversial because her involvement in Britney Spears' conservatorship that ended a couple years ago now. There's a lot of allegations about her, benefiting from the Britney conservatorship, not doing anything to stop it, enabling her parents. To be completely honest, this legal stuff kind of goes over my head, but I know the Britney fandom and like the pop music fandoms really, really hate Jamie Lynn Spears, and it is shady the way she seems to have had parts in conservatorship. I just don't know what the legal terms mean, so I'm like confused reading the timeline of everything, but I will link below an article that has the timeline of Jamie Lynn and Britney's feud. Britney also seems to have a lot of resentment for Jamie Lynn for like getting a lot of stuff handed to her, and I think Zoey 101 was the big thing that was handed to Jamie Lynn Spears, because she's like the title character and is not a good actress. And that's very much aside from like the controversies and all that, but like, oh my God, both in Zoey 101 and 102, Jamie Lynn Spears' acting is simply not good. Her accent just like slips in and out all the time. She has a really thick Southern accent. That's why I definitely don't think this is a movie that holds up for like anyone to watch. I just think fans of Zoey 101 will have fun with it, and they did age up the movie, made it more adult. They kind of followed the footsteps of the iCarly show reboot, where the characters now curse or drink alcohol, or there's like openly gay characters, which is more of like a cultural shift. Zoey 102, like any reboot, is fan service, and it's mostly there for the nostalgia, for fans to see the cast get together, see how they've aged with the cast. Zoey 102 is streaming on Paramount Plus. It came out at the end of July, and it was executive produced by Jamie Lynn Spears. It would have been like such a much better movie, and it would have been great if they had just recast, a 30-year-old blonde lady actress as Zoey, with Jamie Lynn executive producing and having an active role in like making the reboot happen. Obviously, that was never going to happen, but the movie would have benefited quite a bit. There's a movie actually that kind of flew under the radar last year called Somebody I Used to Know on Amazon Prime. And it's kind of a holiday Christmas movie, but I watched it in like May because my friend had told me it was good. It has a really similar kind of setup to this movie, but it's done much more nuanced and artsy, and I really enjoyed it. It's still like rom-com-y and light, but feels like modern and not like a dated kind of iteration of rom-coms. I find it really strange that in Zoey 102, Zoey's profession is a reality TV producer. In Somebody I Used to Know, the main character is also a reality TV producer, and they kind of use that. It kind of feels like they got the same writing prompt to make the script and came out with totally different results. In lieu of Zoey 102, if you don't watch the show, I really recommend that movie. It was really interesting and cool what they did with it. It's made by Allison Brie and Dave Franco, who are married. And I think I saw that on Rotten Tomatoes, Zoey 102 has a 67%. And this is one of the few times where me and Rotten Tomatoes are linked up and we agree. I would give it like a 65% for what it is. It's a direct-to-streaming movie based on a TV show, reboot. We left off Zoey 101 with, I don't remember. I tried to go watch the last episode. I watched bits and pieces. Zoey 101 abruptly ended when Jamie Lynn Spears got herself 16 and pregnant. During that whole era of like teen pregnancy being a big thing, that topic is actually one of my very first videos I made on this channel. I don't think it's a very good video, but I just find it so strange when like society grasps onto a concept in pop culture and like everything is about that. Like the teen pregnancy thing was like Bristol Palin, if y'all remember Jamie Lynn Spears. There was like the Pregnancy Pact movies, there was Juno, there was Secret Life of the American Teenager, Teen Mom on MTV. And when I did my video deep diving into it, it kind of seemed like Juno was the catalyst, which makes sense. Usually, I feel like in pop culture and art and whatever, high art comes first, you know, the Oscar-winning higher brow movie that like everyone loves, and then that derives into cable TV, then network TV, then real life too. And when it happens in real life, people latch on to that happening, like with Jamie Lynn. I do have to give it to this movie for having a budget, a significant budget, because oh my God, they had huge songs on this movie. Usually you expect these TV movies to have those knockoff versions of like the popular songs, but Zoey 102 said we are not skimping on music. They played Used to Know Me by Charlie XCX, which is my second favorite song on Crash. Also, side note, you notice I put my Charlie XCX poster up now. That is another song from Crash. And then they played like a Casey Musgrave song. I don't listen to slow music, so I don't know which one it was, but it was a Casey Musgrave song. They played Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo. Like, I don't want to know how much that cost. They had to pay Olivia. They had to pay Paramore for that, probably. They played Don't Speak. And then at the end, they end with The Starships by Nicki Minaj, which I was like, that song is still iconic. I don't care what anyone says. I still have it on my summer playlist. Follow me on Spotify. Starships are meant to fly, girl. Of course. They really did elevate it, though, with the soundtrack and also the cinematography. Like, give it up to the cinematographers on Zoey 102 because the movie looked amazing quality. There was beautiful kind of landscape shots, well thought out shots. I don't know. I have like much lower expectations for director streaming or TV movies. I gotta give credit where credit is due. And the movie looked great. And also they wrote it well. Like the action that was happening was all a string of tropes. It's a wedding weekend type rom-com movie. So of course you have like the main character hiring a random guy to play her boyfriend and impress her ex. And of course the ex has a girlfriend that's also at the wedding weekend. They also throw in the trope of like being double booked on a night. Zoey has to be at her best friend's wedding and at her workplace at the same time on the same night and has to run back and forth. And we also end up with like a bride on the run situation. So the action itself and the plot points are very stereotypical, but I do have to say it was pretty well written in the dialogue portions. The jokes were current, they were funny. They actually parodied and like satirized some funny things about modern culture. They even make fun of themselves and PCA, the school they went to, and we'll talk about that and like the state of PCA now. So diving into the plot itself, let's just recap it and talk about each part. Zoey Brooks is our main character, and she works as a undervalued reality TV show producer on a Love Island type of show. Except in this show, like, the guy has to choose between a sports car and the woman, which I thought the reality TV portions of this movie were so funny. As someone who recaps and reviews Love is Blind, I got so much satisfaction seeing like how they made fun of essentially dating reality TV, how it's super produced. The producers are in the ear of the contestants. The contestants are just interested in looking good and being famous. The concept being all wild of like, man chooses woman or sports car, haha. I thought it was all very clever and good for the writers making fun of that. It's actually funny because there's a moment where they're in the room with all the reality TV producers and one guy is like, what if we replace all the women with older women, like mom aged? And the boss is like, no one would ever watch that. People hate older women. I thought it was funny because they actually did make the show and it's called MILF Manor. And it wasn't like a complete flop. I think it was kind of a gimmicky gag moment, but people were talking about it. So I don't think that guy's idea would have been that unsuccessful is what I'm trying to say. Zoe's main conflict at work is kind of like really basic in how they present it, but she's the only female producer on the all-male production team. She is constantly being overlooked by the boss, not giving credit to her ideas. The boss doesn't want to give her a raise or promote her, and he doesn't want to have her there for the live finale. I thought this was like a fine idea to depict. I mean, sexism in the workplace does exist. I just thought it was kind of hitting you over the head with it, and it kind of gave like 2017 girl boss energy. And also from like all my general research, I hear from a lot of like female producers on reality TV, especially like ones with a feminine leaning audience. Like I've seen The Bachelor have female producers. Drag Race has a lot of female producers. That show Unreal, when it came out, had a lot of showrunners and female producers on it. So like, I don't know that women are like that level of underrepresented in reality television. I could be wrong. I'm not like in the industry, but it just felt very like she's the only woman there, and it's like very obvious mean boss picking on her and ignoring her. It just could have used a little bit of subtlety. It's kind of confusing because on the original show, she wanted to be in fashion, and that was like her big thing. So it's kind of random she ended up in reality TV, but I was kind of living for it because I love fictional depictions of reality TV. It's kind of like my favorite niche genre of anything. So the setup of the movie is that Quinn and Logan are getting married, and Quinn asks Zoe to be her maid of honor. And the funny thing is about rebooting like a high school, middle school show is how you just have to suspend your disbelief that like adults in real life care about what happened in high school that much. I did like that they actually referenced this, and Archer, who is the host of the Love Island type reality show and Zoe's coworker and friend, has a line that summarizes it best. Like, it's gross how much you talk about high school. So at least they kind of acknowledge it. I love the Archer character. I hope I see that actor in more things because he did a great job and he was a new character to the world. So Zoe agrees to be Quinn's maid of honor. Quinn and Logan were such a fun couple that happened at the end of Zoey 101 in that final season. It's crazy how much this couple works in these shows, but I fall for it every time. And Quinn and Logan were so funny. They kept their relationship secret until the very last episode, and now they're getting married. So that's like really adorable, and I loved seeing the Quinn and Logan parts of Zoey 102. That was a part that really brought nostalgia for sure. I also really identified with Quinn back then. I feel like Quinn is the neurodivergent coded friend, and you know, that's obviously the character I'm gonna relate to. So Quinn now is like a Steve Jobs type of person or character, like inventing the new TechMate. They kept the TechMate line of phones going from the show. And Logan was rich back then and is still rich now. He's just like a Nepo baby, basically, of like a big Hollywood director. Michael is a music producer now. They also include Stacey Dilson, who was that girl obsessed with cotton swabs. She kind of became like the nerdy outcast one after Quinn became like upgraded to like the official roommates. But yeah, they include Stacey Dilson, the cotton swab girl, and she's married to Mark Del Piccolo. I've forgotten so much about Mark Del Piccolo, but He was Quinn's original boyfriend in the show. I feel like Stacy became a character later, so I'm not as attached to her, but like Mark Del Figolo was there from the beginning, and his like interactions were always so funny because he's so like monotone. And I love Stacy's character in this because she is like the host of the #1 true crime podcast. My Favorite Slaughter is kind of parodying, you know, My Favorite Murder and the whole true crime podcast genre. I love seeing that poked fun at because it is such a weird phenomenon in our society that are ethically very confusing. And Chase is a teacher. Obviously, Chase is going to be that love interest opposite for Zoey, just as he was in the original show. There are a lot of people absent that were in the original show. Mainly, I thought it was strange Dustin was absent, Zoey's little brother. They mentioned that he has like 4 kids. Wasn't that actor on TikTok and maybe he spoke out against the show? I don't know why he wasn't invited or couldn't do it or rejected. Also, Victoria Justice wasn't there. I was kind of glad I didn't like her on Zoey 101 too much. No shade. She had her own show later, so she got her moment. Also, of course, the original roommates of Zoey, Alexa Nicholas, and I forget the girl who plays Dana, were not there. Alexa Nicholas has been the most vocal against Dan Schneider and the whole situation at Zoey 101. She does a lot of advocacy for child actors, child performers. She seems to be kind of part of that movement. It wasn't surprising to me at all that she was not involved. She did get cut pretty early on in the show because she had conflicts with Jamie Lynn. And of course, it's Jamie Lynn's show. So if Jamie Lynn's having conflict with someone, who are they going to get rid of? Obviously, not her. So that's the state of the characters. I think in typical like rom-com fashion, like everyone is really successful at their profession somehow, even though it's really hard to be like a popular podcaster, a music producer, inventor of iPhones. And so the main conflict arises when Zoey agrees to be maid of honor, but then her boss realizes how important she is in producing the start of their dating show. And therefore, the boss demands that Zoey attend the live finale now and work at it. And of course, the live finale and wedding are the same day. And Zoey decides to do both because she can't say no to her best friend and being maid of honor, but she can't say no at work and miss out on the opportunity and lose her job. I really loved how in Zoey 102 they kept the element going of like unique technology. Something that was really interesting in Zoey 101 was always like these tech and gadget things they would have on it. Remember the Gen X? That was so funny. And then the TechMate, which I wanted a TechMate so bad back then. And I like how they carried it over and modernized it. And they made it this like clear looking phone. Why is it always like the futuristic thing to have like a clear phone? Could that even ever work? I don't think so. Also, like a big thing in Zoey 102 is this self-driving car that is the prize for the reality show, but Zoey ends up borrowing it for her double booked wedding weekend and live finale thing. So the self-driving car is like an important plot device for the movie, but I feel like it also carries that like futuristic perspective that Zoey 101 had and the gadgets they like to incorporate. It was just cute and thoughtful to like keep that element in. They also introduced a new character named Lyric, who is Logan's younger sister. This was another one that was like a really fun satire of a type of celebrity we see. Specifically, she reminded me of Grimes, but just kind of any like artsy and like wannabe progressive woke type of person or type of artsy woman who also happens to be like a billionaire or millionaire, whatever. And that kind of like contradicts itself. That reminds me of Grimes, first of all, because Grimes is always trying to tweet like deep philosophical things that just come off not good. Or she like tries to read Marx while walking around the street or whatever to seem intellectual. But also Lyric makes music that's very electronic and like AI based. And that was the part that like drove it home, seeming kind of like an inspired parody of Grimes. So the obstacles that are happening throughout the movie are, first of all, Zoey and her unsuccessful love life. She is very insecure because Chase has a girlfriend who he's bringing to the wedding weekend and she has nobody. So she ends up hiring a guy because she's reviewing casting tapes for the reality show. So it's like a hot, attractive guy who is an actor and can do an Australian accent. This all happens because she like overhears Stacy say like, oh, Zoe probably not gonna show up because she's embarrassed. She doesn't want to see Chase. Apparently they had a falling out and some Hawaii incident that we don't hear about till later. Zoe bursts in and mentions that she has a boyfriend actually, even though it's a huge lie. So she hires that guy named Todd, and they name him Hugo for his boyfriend character, and they succeed in making Chase jealous and insecure because the guy is perfect. He's a surgeon, he's Australian, he has six-pack, and everyone at the wedding is very impressed by him. This leads into obviously Chase and Zoe reuniting. When they first see each other, they actually reference the very first episode of Zoe 101. Chase looks at Zoe and he's walking, and in looking at her, he runs into a pole and hurts himself. I forgot that was like the thing, but that's like the first episode, how they meet. Eventually, they get stuck in the self-driving car together, and this is where their relationship starts turning around. There's like a running scene right before this where like it was just really nice cinematography. Chase is just running across the beach. It was gorgeous. When they go pick up the rings, the ladies there think they're the bride and groom and eventually like force them to kiss for them. At first I was like, wait, this means Chase is actually cheating on his girlfriend because he has a girlfriend, right? But way later we find out that Chase had also not hired the girlfriend, but like they had broken up 2 weeks ago and she just came as a favor to him. Zoe does apologize about the Hawaii incident, which is just that Chase went to Hawaii. They were supposed to go on a trip together and she ditched him and ended up not going. The reason for this was that she was afraid of them actually working out after not working out for 4 seasons of a show. If you're thinking this makes no sense, it's because it makes no sense. Like, I did not like that reasoning because it wasn't strong enough of a reason that Zoe didn't want to be with Chase. I just wish they had thought of something more to add to their falling out because their falling out seemed really like vague and like not very interesting. That's not a reason. Like, give the real reason. Tell us. So we do learn about the lore update about PCA, Pacific Coast Academy, the very cool school that they went to throughout the show. This is during the karaoke scene, which is the midpoint party of the movie. Why does every wedding weekend movie have to include a karaoke scene? Bonus points if it's a lip sync to a studio recording, which Zoe 102 did. It gets everyone trashed and then makes everyone hungover the next day, causing fun hijinks and conflicts. Apparently, this group of students was the last class to attend PCA because it got shut down. The school wasn't a real school. It wasn't accredited. And the Dean Rivers, was like embezzling all the money. They all ended with saying they all still have student loans and that it was super expensive. This whole explanation just raised more questions than provided answers because I was like, what? PCA was not a real school? So like, did they have to go get GEDs? Did they have to go redo school? I think it was meant to poke fun at how like in Zoe 101, they were never seen in class. Unless it was like the one fun video project about Gen X. I remember that one. Also, shouldn't like their student loans be forgiven somehow legally if it wasn't a real school and they were getting scammed? It definitely raised a lot of questions for me, but I thought it was funny that they like talked about it. So the other conflict for Zoe besides her love life is the work stuff where she has to go back and forth from work to the wedding. She like has to keep putting out fires with Jordan, who is the star of the reality show. He like dyes his hair orange and she's not there to stop it. She actually uses Hugo or Todd, the actor she had hired, to babysit Jordan, but it goes awry because Jordan hits his head or something and has memory loss. There's one point where Zoe has to go to work and she sends Hugo to the bridesmaid spa day thing. And the way I would be pissed if my best friend sent her guy to the bridesmaid spa day. On the wedding day, things kind of go really awry. Zoe has to be wearing an earpiece for her reality show live finale while also being like at the altar with the bride. Throughout the movie, Quinn is having hesitance about the wedding because she never wanted a big wedding, didn't want a fancy wedding, but Logan is obsessed with like having the huge whole thing. She expresses this multiple times. She expresses it to Zoe. And on the wedding day, like Chase and Zoe are both missing at first because the car broke down, so they have to run to the wedding. Everything feels wrong. except for Lyric is providing the original music to Walk Down the Altar. And why did it end up kind of being a bop? I kind of liked the little AI song she did, but also I do listen to Grimes and I like her music. I'm so sorry, I know it's problematic fave. At some point, Michael loses his voice, so he can't officiate anymore, and they get Stacy to officiate. And this line killed me, where she's like, Quinn, whose inventions will define a generation, and my rich friend Logan. Like, the writing is kind of good. But then mid-ceremony, also Stacy starts accusing Hugo, Zoey's fake boyfriend, of being the Malibu murderer, which is the current podcast case she's working on. So Stacy and Mark think he's a murderer. This halts the whole thing because Zoey is on the live finale. She gets caught trying to work, and she's also messing up the live finale completely because she's trying to apologize to Quinn. It's a whole mess. So Quinn finally breaks down, gets mad at Zoey for working, then gets mad at Logan for making everything a spectacle, and runs away. So we have a bride on the run. Also throughout the movie, they kind of showed Chase's girlfriend, Danielle, and Hugo, Zoey's fake boyfriend, flirting, and then it didn't go anywhere. I thought they were gonna get together. Oh my god, this kind of makes the ending darker. Anyway, so the kind of twist at the end of this mess is Zoey thinks of what would Quinn want for her wedding. So they decide to go back to PCA and decorate it and set everything up in order for Quinn and Logan to get married, feeling more like themselves. This was pretty silly because even people that are high school sweethearts and stuff, I don't think their ideal wedding would be at their former school. But it did like drive home all of that nostalgia that I think the movie was aiming for. They show an old Jet X on the campus. It's like deserted. They also get Sushi Rocks to cater, which I'd forgotten about Sushi Rocks. Like some of them worked at the sushi place and always delivered it. It was such a like cool high school life. Once I went to college, I was like, oh, Zoey 101 was just like college life, but pretending like kids could handle that. Quinn and Logan end up reconciling because Logan finally like straight up talks to her and apologizes and then brings her to the campus where they actually have their wedding. There's one point where Quinn calls Logan a groomzilla, which I thought was pretty progressive and a fun reversal because we always hear about bridezillas and it's this big derogatory thing, but it was interesting to see like a groomzilla portrayed. And once Quinn and Logan make up, they have a moment where they both yell, I love Quinn Penske, I love Logan Reese, which is exactly how they revealed their relationship to the school in the last episode. So it was a nice callback. This final segment was all about the nostalgia and the references to the original. Everything just kind of works out with the PCA wedding compared to the other fancy one. Also, Zoey's boss promotes her, and at first she like rejects it because, you know, he's treated her like shit this whole time. And then he's like, I'll double your salary and also hire Todd/Hugo as a real actor in exchange for him helping her out this weekend so much. So she actually takes the job, and then after that, Chase and Zoey dance and kiss, and everyone claps for some reason. Everyone knows who these randos are at this wedding. The movie ends with Todd/Hugo putting someone in his trunk and actually being the Malibu murderer. That's what it's implying. It's kind of like a really dark ending that was unnecessary. Like, I thought the miscommunication and confusion was enough for that storyline, and it didn't have to like end in actual murder. Like, what? Hello? That's terrifying. And now that I think about it, I'm like, was it Chase's girlfriend, Chase's ex-girlfriend he put in the trunk? Because their storyline never went anywhere, even though they were flirty the whole movie. I think she is the body. That's messed up, and I don't like that the movie ended that way. That's ridiculous. It was such a lighthearted movie, and now I'm like scared. So that was the movie. That was the plot. Overall, was it a life-changing piece of art? No, but I think it served up a lot of the nostalgia and did it in like a nice package. Like the cinematography was good. The music budget was there. The other actors, I think, did a great job aside from Jamie Lynn. The new characters especially I loved. For me, some of the strongest things were kind of these background parodies of things in our modern world, like dating reality shows, how like fake and scripted they can be, and how toxic they can be behind the scenes. The true crime podcast genre, where like regular people think they're whole detectives. Murder is like this entertainment fodder. Or like the woke millionaire artsy girl that is sometimes sticking her foot in her mouth. I thought those were clever, and there was just some good one-liners in it. I had a good time with Zoey 102. It had its flaws for sure, but the core was there, and like the technical aspects were all pretty good. It's kind of annoying that like the main character and title character is the biggest flaw of the movie. I don't think it's like a thing to like run and go watch it. It's not like a movie I could picture myself rewatching a lot. Even when I rewatch Zoey 101 as an adult, I'm like, Mama, this is garbage, because the acting is so bad. The plots can be really toxic. They're very like 2000s. But those are my thoughts. I would love to hear what you thought of Zoey 102. If you watched it, if you plan to watch, let me know in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed, I put out new videos whenever I feel like it about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Yes, I am still going to call it Twitter for the rest of my days. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!